Hi everyone. Sorry very much for the confusion getting started today. New webinar software, and nothing is ever as easy as you think it's going to be. Thanks very much for joining us for our Lync Power User webinar. I'm Mark Kaufmann, Lync co-founder, and hoping today that we can walk through some of the basics of Lync, but also show you all some of the I guess things you may not know already. Maybe we'll wait a few minutes here for other people to join us because I know the confusion here. We've kind of switched channels, and there are a bunch of people waiting in the correct channel, which I couldn't somehow access for this webinar. So we'll just wait a few minutes, try and get a few more people to join us. In the meantime, maybe you guys could, who are here, could let us know where you're from and whether you are new users of Lync or longtime users of Lync, whether you're using web or mobile. That would be great. I think I see a few more people starting to come now. Give it a few more seconds. Thanks very much for your patience, everybody, as we sort through the technical difficulties. Maybe while we wait, we could just let us know where you're from and how long you've been a Lync user. Also, maybe let me know if you're more interested in using the web version versus the mobile version, which we should focus on maybe here today, although we'll probably look at a little bit of both. Oh, great. From Finland, using Lync since 2014, web version, mobile version. Sweden, hallo Leute. USA, about a year, usually web version. Haven't figured out how to say phrases on mobile. Yeah, that seems to be a question that comes up not infrequently, so we can definitely look at that. From Brazil, using Lync for about 3 years. Great. Thailand, we get people from everywhere, no doubt. Yeah, web version. London, 2 weeks, both. Yes, this will be recorded, and we'll send the link around to everybody, not to worry. From Russia, Norway, studying Spanish, great. US, France. Well, why don't we just get started then? I think people will continue to trickle over. As I say, once more, I'm very sorry about the technical issues we had getting started here. But let's get right into it. So I know some of you, and I can see that some of you have been members for a long time. Some of you have been members for a shorter time. So we'll kind of go through the basic stuff, but quickly, and then move on to, I guess as part of that, we'll end up diving a little deeper in certain areas. So first off, here we have the library tab. By default, you're normally looking at your lesson feed. The lesson feed is essentially lessons that other users have completed recently, although mixed in with those lessons, or have completed or liked, and normally liked actually, so that, but mixed in with the lessons that other users have liked will be, and I don't see any here, of course, since we're doing a live stream, but eventually we'll find some media articles. So these are articles that are pulled in from different news sources. In this case, I'm in Spanish. These are pulled in from El País, a news site in Spain. If I click this import button, in fact, it'll automatically import these articles from whichever news source is identified. So typically you see them a little more frequently than is showing up here in my feed right now. I don't know why, but they're should stand out because they do have that import label and the import button. One last thing on this feed, you can control the level of the content in your feed by simply adjusting the level slider. Typically, when I'm using my feed, I actually want to have like a 3-level spread. I tend to do that. So I get some, if I think my level is intermediate 1, I'll tend to also pull in content from intermediate 2 and beginner 2, just so I get a bit wider of a range, and also because it is good to vary the difficulty level of your content. So sometimes if I want to challenge myself, I'll do some intermediate 2, which probably will have more unknown words in it or new words, and to sort of push my level. And then sometimes maybe I want to work on fluency, and so I'll try something a little easier, like maybe I'll go back and do a mini story to kind of work on fluency. And every time you do, like the mini stories especially are a great thing to return to. Every time you gotta go through a mini story again, you see things that you didn't see the last time. And it just helps you notice, helps you improve, like I said, improve your fluency. But at the same time, you don't want to spend all your time reworking easy stuff, because you need to push your level, you need to grow your vocab. So you should actually do a range, and the brain likes variety. So a range of different content levels is a good approach. Click apply, my feed will now readjust, targeting those levels that I've identified. And you'll see now that here's a couple different media articles that I can import. Moving on from there, if I actually do open a lesson, again, very quickly, when you open a lesson, blue words are new words. Those are words you've never seen before on Lync. You may have seen them before in your life, but not on Lync. And the idea is you want to get rid of the blue. You either want to tell us that you know the words, you want to ignore them, like here's a name. Typically, I'll ignore the name. And typically, if I'm on the web, I'm using a keyboard. So X, using the keyboard, the X key ignores that word. That means it's not going to be included in my statistics. I don't have to try and learn it, whatever. You don't have to ignore words, but I tend to want to do that for proper nouns, for words that are, if I'm reading something in Spanish, sometimes there might be English words I want to ignore, just for keeping my statistics more accurate. When I am on a blue word, I see the 3 most popular translations that other users have created and other users have used. So you can see that this man has been used 374 times. This word, okay, they're all going to be pretty similar for man. One thing to know here or take advantage of is that, and again, word isn't a great example, but for other words, sometimes the top three translations that are shown aren't great. And so I often view more and see what else I can find. Maybe I'll find a different word here. Again, take advantage of the opportunity to view more. One question that comes up from time to time, some users will be studying a language and translating into English because there tend to be more translations in English, but your native language may be something else. Or you may be translating into your native language and not finding a good translation and wanting to see what the translation in English is. So when you view more translations, you have the option to then change this language and see the popular translations in different languages, which is kind of a useful thing to do if you are in that situation. A user asked about phrases on mobile. I'll just briefly touch on phrases on the web. First of all, when you're on a word, so here I'm on quería, you'll see that there's this gray highlight surrounding that word, or at least encompassing words around that word, and that tells you that phrases exist. Other users have previously saved phrases here containing that word, and if I either click on that word again or expand the gray and click on the gray, I get the list of phrases that other users have saved in this situation or in this location. And then I might decide to save one of these. So in which case I would click on that phrase. I see the translation I want it to go. Quería ir. It works just like any other link. I click on that translation and save it. Now, what you'll find is that there can be, especially in a lesson like this one, where a lot of people have used the mini story, so you'll end up with a lot of different phrases. Now, I guess I can't get back at that. I guess I can here, but I'll try and find an example. But a lot of people end up selecting a bunch of words because they're trying to actually get a translation for that word. So one thing I want to point out here is that if you are looking at any sentence and you want that sentence translation, the way to do it isn't by selecting a phrase. The way to get a sentence translation is actually to just switch into sentence mode, which is this toggle at the top. Once you're in sentence mode, you have this translate sentence button available to you, which in the mini stories is the actual translation. In most lessons, it'll probably just be a Google translation, but most of the time it's actually a very helpful thing to do. When I'm using Lync, I tend to read in full page mode, but then if I'm on a sentence and I've looked up words and I still don't understand, very often I'll go to click into sentence mode, translate the sentence, and it's another way for me to try and understand the meaning of the sentence. And the one thing in language learning, which Steve always says, is you have to accept uncertainty in language learning, and so that you shouldn't expect that you're going to understand 100% of what you're reading, especially when you're for a long time, and you shouldn't worry about it. The fact is, you're slowly getting better. Your brain is slowly learning. If you're looking up a word, the meanings that you see that have been created by other users help you understand the word. Or if you look up, like let's say I don't like any of these, I can always look up the word in a dictionary and create my own translation. And this isn't maybe a great example, but since it's a fairly obvious translation. But again, a lot of the time, the meaning of a word isn't obvious even after you look it up you don't really understand it even after looking it up in a dictionary, but everything kind of helps. So if I look up that word, if I'm able to save a phrase containing that word, if I can then look up the sentence translation to get a better sense of how that, what they're trying to say with that sentence, all of those things help me start to learn, help me put it together, and then over time, all of these things just gradually help the language become clearer in my brain, more essentially like the fog clearing. So keep that in mind with regard to phrases and looking up sentences. Take advantage of the sentence mode. It's actually a great tool. Maybe we'll switch over very quickly to the mobile app. I don't know why I can't do anything on the mobile app. Let's see. Oh, maybe I have to. Okay, so the mobile app just very quickly works the same way. When you want to select a phrase, which a user had asked about, first of all, you'll see that when you tap on a word, you get that gray highlight again. Tap a second time, you see a list of previous phrases. Tap on one of those previous phrases, create a link for that phrase. Now, if you want to select a phrase, tap and hold, you get the regular highlighting that you get that you use to highlight any text on your device, and then you have to drag the selection. Then you'll see an add link button. Tap add link. Now you see possible translations. Choose your translation. That link is saved, and this is an iPhone, but it essentially works the same way on Android. Tap and hold, drag your selection to see the phrase. One thing that's probably also worth pointing out, you see how I've now reached 5 known words. I had blue words remaining. A lot of times people come on and they feel like they have to make every new word a known word. That's not the case. Click on the blue words that you don't know. Create links for them by choosing one of the popular translations, or checking a dictionary to create a translation. And then when you're ready to move on, all the blue words on the page. So in this case, there are, 7 blue words. Let's say I know all these blue words. When I go to the next page, all those blue words are made known. So that is quite a time saver, and obviously the same holds true in full text mode. Definitely something that you would want to take or make use of if you are not a beginner in the language. As a beginner, you're creating links for every word. And I should say, and this is a kind of a key point, a lot of users will tend to not want to make too many links, tend to want to hang on to blue words. And our message is always link everything. Link all your blue, or at least get rid of the blue. You should not, your goal should be at the end of your session, all the blue words are gone. Now you can go back and reread the lesson, click on the yellow words again. Don't feel like you don't want to create too many links, because then you'll have to review them all, and you don't want to build up too large a backlog of links that you're trying to learn. And that's, I mean, in the end, you can learn how you want to learn, but we don't recommend that. We recommend that you link essentially link everything. You don't know if it's important or not important. That's fine. Link everything, and if the words matter, you'll see them again. You'll see them in the next lesson. You'll see them 3 lessons from now. And over time, the words that matter will reoccur frequently, and those are the words that you'll learn first. Less frequent words will reoccur less frequently, but you'll eventually learn those too. And words that very rare words, you'll probably never see them again. You'll never learn them. It doesn't matter. In general, most of the vocabulary you're going to learn, you're going to learn in context, in the lessons, and not actually by doing review. Review you can use and should use from time to time, and it's nice to take a break from the reading and listening, and it's nice to focus on particular sets of words, but you should be making far too many links than you can possibly review. Now we can take a quick look at the review. I won't go through the mechanics of the review, but one thing to point out here is that you can look at all the links in your lesson by clicking this button. Then you can manage that list, which will take you to the vocabulary page. You can export it, you can print it. And also, you do have the ability within the review settings to actually choose to show or not show particular activities, and also to adjust what shows on the front and back of your activity card. So just a few things to point out there that you may want to take advantage of. But again, just to stress, don't worry about creating too many links. You should create lots, as many as you possibly can. The words that matter will show up more frequently in this and future lessons, and you will learn them in context. As far as using the review tools, you can do it in these lessons from time to time, especially if you like doing that kind of thing. Or you can go to the vocabulary tab where you can see all your words and phrases. You can set filters. You can try to filter groups of words and review sort of, 4 coin words are most important or most frequently occurring words. So you can focus on using the filters, you can focus on those kinds of words. So sort by importance. So if you apply that sort, now you see only 4-star words. You can then review a page of 4-star words. The other thing you can do is you can actually tag your vocabulary. For example, here quería is a verb, and these automatic verb tags appear when you save a verb. In this case, it tells you it's a verb. It tells you the person. It tells you the root form of the verb, and it tells you the tense. So let's say so that if I were in the vocabulary section, I could actually focus on this tense, choose this tag, and review that tag only. And I think that's kind of the best way to use the review. And I'll open it in a different tab here to show you that. So if I'm on vocabulary, I can actually filter. Here's that verb tag that I was looking at. There is only one verb right now, but over time, I mean, this isn't a real account. Over time, you're going to have more and more verbs. And if you have trouble with a particular tense, you can search that, or at least filter by that particular tense here in the vocabulary section, and then review just that tense. And I think that's a very good thing to do, especially in languages like Spanish, where verb tenses, especially coming from English anyway, can be quite a tricky thing. One thing also worth pointing out, so you'll notice that this verb tag, if I click on the verb tag, it actually opens up our Spanish grammar guide, and then we'll explain Spanish verb tenses. The grammar guide just so you know, is available here in the profile submenu. There's a grammar guide, and then from your lesson, this verb tag will take you to that grammar guide. Another thing to point out is that the root form of the verb, if you click on the root form, it's tied into a verb conjugator, so that you can quickly see this full conjugation of whatever verb you're looking at. So those are useful things that may not be obvious to most users, but again, those do take advantage of those. And this verb tag takes you to the full verb grammar explanation, as does the particular grammar tag that you click on. Other things of note, this full text option is useful if you want to listen. Like very often users open a lesson, you want to listen and read the lesson first before creating links. But if you page the lesson, all your blue words become known. So instead of doing it that way, you can click this full text button so that you get the full text over here, and then you can listen and follow along initially, just to kind of introduce your brain to the lesson. Then you can start, then you can go through and create links in the normal mode. But that full text mode is useful. You can also see a full translation. If a full translation exists, it will be accessible here. Likewise, some lessons have video, some lessons the odd lesson lessons have notes and exercises, and again, all of those things can be accessed in this resources area. Trying to see if there's anything particularly special to share here. I don't see anything. Oh, the one thing is the playlist. All lessons are added automatically to your playlist when you complete a lesson. And by completing a lesson, I mean you've gone through all the pages. And I'll just click through and complete this lesson. But you've got to the end of the lesson, you've completed it, you see your statistics for the lesson. If you like the lesson, it'll show up in the lesson feed for other users. So it's kind of a good thing to do. If you don't like the lesson, please don't like it. Otherwise, you're telling other people that you're recommending that lesson. Ideally, lessons in our feed are lessons that other users have thought are good, and they're sharing that with you. One thing worth mentioning is that if it's an imported lesson and you like it, it'll also end up in the feed as long as it has the original URL, because any imported lesson sends you to that source website where you can where it's automatically re-imported, I guess. But at any rate, a lot of users don't realize that you can like imported lessons as well, and those will also be shared with other users in the feed. I saw one user asking how you save words or look up words on mobile, so maybe we'll do that quickly. Let's find a lesson. This lesson is actually, looks like it's a Netflix show that I imported the captions from. Anyway, you tap on a blue word on mobile, you see two possible, like, popular translations. You also see one dictionary source. I typically expand my pop-up on mobile so I can see a few more, and even I tap show more so I can see even more previous translations. I think that the user was asking how to actually check a dictionary. So you'll see that I have 5 dictionaries showing, the gray buttons at the bottom. Verb reversal is a verb conjugator, which obviously is not applicable here. Word reference is a good dictionary. Spanish dict. Context reversal is a good tool for looking up phrases. A lot of the time it's hard to get a good definition for phrases. Google Translate can be a good place to check, but also context reversal is a very good tool for trying to understand and get a meaning for phrases. There are actually lots of dictionaries that you can access here, like English, from Spanish to English. You can see I have 5 selected, the 5 at the top, but I can choose from all these other ones. And if I add one, it then now gets added to my list of selected resources. I even have the opportunity to go and find resources in different languages and add them as well, so that if I wanted to, I could add Danish Google Translate as a Spanish dictionary, and you'll see that it now, those dictionaries are added. Are now available to me in the expanded blue pop-up window. And then if I want to check meaning for this word, I tap on whatever dictionary I want. Rid of the ad that pops up. This doesn't work. There we go. Then I can just tape it or type it in here and be done. So that hopefully explains that. I think probably at this point I see lots of questions up on the stream. I've kind of walked through the core functionality. So I think at this point I will go on to questions, and because that's a great way to kind of explain all the different things that can help you use Lync better. So I see somebody here asking how to tackle German verbs, at least German separable verbs. That's a question that comes up all the time. There's no obvious way of doing it in Lync, but if we look at German, now we got to try and find a separable verb. Yeah. Well, okay. So here, I think this is a separable verb. So you'll see that it was stelle, sie an. I think anstelle is presumably a separable verb, although I don't see it. Yeah, so you can see that in German, if you select part of a separable verb, all the potential German verbs are added as tags. So in this case, stelle and an. Anstelle is the verb, anstellen is here as a separable verb. So it just is an indicator that this component may be part of a separable verb, and you then have to, I mean, you get used to it in German, you figure out which verbs are likely to be separable. It's one of those things that seems like it's super important to focus on initially, but you kind of just get used to it. And I just save the components separately. You have this ability to see that all the potential combinations, which helps you get used to the different particles that are most of the time part of separable verbs. And then I think you just, yeah, there's no obvious way of tying them together in Lync, and I honestly don't think you need to. You get used to it over time. Actually, separable verbs are one of the simpler things, easier things to get used to in German. It's just exposure, and at least for me, I find that there are a lot more difficult aspects of German than the separable verbs. And so don't worry about it too much, but use the verb tag there to help you out. Someone's asking how to copy a definition from a selected resource to my lesson. So maybe we'll just revisit that again here. If I'm in this, if I want to look up this word, I can check a dictionary. It's going to open up here. I can then, if I want, either copy it and then paste it, or simply type it in. It's up to you. And again, just to stress, and I know for some of you new users, this is often not that clear, but when you click on a blue word, the definitions that show are the 3 most popular definitions that other users created. Other users created those definitions by checking these dictionaries and copying and pasting or typing in what they want to save as their translation. And so then when you come up, the next guy that comes along can see what they did and then can either choose to use that or check the dictionary and make their own translation. Another user is asking, I imported a YouTube video, only half the content appeared. Why is the length of the video limited? The length of lessons on Lync is limited. So if it's a long YouTube video, what'll happen is when you import it, it'll get split so that you should see a number 1 at the end of the first part. And if you finish the first part and click next, it'll open up next lesson, it'll open up the next part. And if you go view, it'll create a mini course for that video. But I think someone points out there is a video limit when importing from YouTube as well of 75 minutes. And I don't think there are that many videos on YouTube that are longer than that. If you're having specific problems other than that with importing, there may from time to time be some issues on different sites with the way the content is presented. And the best thing to do if something's not importing properly with using the import extension is to write support@link.com and explain where you're trying to import from, send a link so that we can go and try it ourselves and see what the issue is. Any other questions? I'm just scrolling through the list. There's a lot of action here. Someone is asking, when selecting links for language when creating links for Lync with symbol-based writing, you recommend selecting definitions with pronunciation or not? So that's in Chinese. Very often the translations have pinyin in them, and in Japanese, that very often have hiragana. I do see also a lot of translations where users will copy the original word, not just in Japanese and Chinese, in all languages, people will copy the original word into the translation. I don't know why you would do that, but in the end, it's your translation, so you can put in it whatever you want. But in terms of Asian languages, I would say don't put the transliteration in your translation, because otherwise, if you use the review activities and you look at you do the reverse flashcard, that you're telling yourself the answer before you do the test, so or do the review. So I think for any number of reasons, even for space reasons, I don't recommend. We don't recommend putting the pinyin or the hiragana in your translation. It shows already in the blue and yellow pop-ups. So if we look at whatever word we're looking at. Now these are not good examples because they're all in hiragana. Let me find a better lesson. Well, lesson doesn't exist. But here, you can see that Romaji, that this word is shown in Romaji and hiragana already here. So you can see that someone has added it in the translation. We didn't used to show the hiragana and Romaji automatically, so it made sense to add it in the translation. But now that we do show it, I know, like I'm studying Japanese now, I remove this all the time. I just take it out so that it's not in my translation. I know I have it here, and I can even show it in the text if I need it. So hopefully that answers your question. Someone is talking about a delete button on mobile. I don't know if that's for deleting lessons or for deleting words. Words you can't necessarily delete, but if you hit ignore for any yellow, like if you hit ignore, it's going to remove the word and essentially delete it. Lessons, and you can do the same on mobile, obviously, with the my dog. You can do the same on mobile, obviously, with the status bar. Ignoring blue words works the same way. Deleting lessons, you would just tap the 3 dots and you can see that there's a remove option to remove the lesson. In fact, these options here for the lesson are kind of useful to become familiar with. You can adjust your reading and listening time, do different things. That reminds me that we didn't actually finish talking about the playlist. In fact, I mentioned it briefly and then forgot about it. But the playlist is a great tool to become familiar with, and something that I know power users should be using all the time. Every time you finish a lesson, it's automatically added to your playlist. You can also, as we just saw, this lesson doesn't have audio, but if the lesson has audio, there's an option to add that lesson to your playlist so that you can either have it done automatically when you complete the lesson, or you can tap that button anytime to add the audio to your playlist. Any audio that's added to your playlist, so if we can find that one that I just added. At any rate, it's here somewhere. Any lesson that you add to your playlist, it should be downloaded automatically to your playlist as long as you give it enough time. And then your playlist is available to you offline as well as online. And the big advantage is that whenever I get into my car or I'm out for a walk, I can just go to my playlist and on my, I'm listening to the playlist on my mobile phone. On my iPhone, I can tap and hold that Lync icon, and I can then tap my playlist, and it'll just start playing my playlist from wherever I left off. So that I guess everything you can do to make it easier to access your content, and in this case, listen to your content, means you're going to do it more, means you're getting more exposure, means you're learning faster. So really make sure to take advantage of the playlist anytime I'm doing anything. As I say, go start my playlist and off I go. And there are some controls, so I tend to shuffle my playlist, and I have it on continuous, which are those controls at the bottom. So here I just turned it off and on. Continuous means it'll just play forever. and shuffle just mixes up the different tracks. And I find that kind of good for, I guess, keeping you focused and kind of introducing some variety instead of just like in this case, I see lots of mini stories in my playlist. I don't tend to listen to them 1 through 60. I tend to listen to a variety. Here I have Despacito in there, and some other articles that I had studied. And, I find that kind of variety that I enjoy it, but certainly you can set up your playlist any way you want. I have a lot of stuff in mind, and I find that good. It's good to have some new stuff. It's good to revisit old stuff. Yeah, hopefully that explains playlists better, and it's available to you on your mobile device, but it's also, assuming you've created a Lync account, it's also obviously the same playlist is accessible on your on the web. I'm actually logged into different accounts here, so it's not the same. But if I were logged into the same account on the web, I would see the same lessons as I was just looking at on my mobile app. For those of you who are using mobile and may not have actually created a Lync account, you do need to create a Lync account, register so that you can log in and access Lync on both platforms. Let's see, any other questions here? Is there a way to get new episodes of a certain podcast where there are only 5 episodes of over 100? If you're studying episodes from a podcast in our library and you would like more episodes, you can, the best way to go about it is to go find that podcast on the web and try to figure out how to import more episodes from there. In some cases, maybe we've been allowed to publish those podcasts on Lync and got the transcripts from the provider, and you may not be able to get them yourself. So you can also ask us, ask us, about that podcast and say, hey, I really like it. Is there any way to get more episodes? And we can look into if that's possible. There's no sort of obvious answer, I guess. Some podcasts are more easily accessible than others. Some are shared by other members, so you would have to ask them because we didn't do it. A lot of the content on Lync is user generated. And so typically you can tell that it's shared by someone else or the provider is someone else, and you would have to ask them for more episodes. But you can also ask on the forum to ask different members. I think people are generally happy to help out and try and find content and help users find content. Being a big part of Lync is the content, and the more we can help people find content, the better. Any other, whoops, that's not what I want. Let's see. Maybe Eric, are you seeing any questions there that I'm having trouble reading all the questions and doing this at the same time? Regarding playlist, when I put the playlist on loop, for example, it stops playing. What could be causing this? It shouldn't do that. It shouldn't stop playing when it's on loop. It should keep playing. Which device are you on? It's something. If it stops playing for whatever reason, then you should email us at support and explain the issue. Sometimes there are issues, and if you can reproduce the issues and let us know the issues, it just helps a lot in trying to fix the issues. And we may not always see them because we're not necessarily doing the same things that you are. So that shouldn't happen. And if it's happening, please do write support and let us know what things are causing that to happen. Is it possible to listen? Yes, you can. Is there a way to get show how to import audio with text and to import an article with text and audio? Importing with text and audio, you'd have to have a URL where you can do that. I don't, off the top of my head, have one. Most sites won't actually allow you to import audio. At least our extension won't import the audio for most pages. So typically if you find, and typically I guess it's a podcast that you're trying to import. If you have a podcast with text and audio and you click on the extension, most of the time it's just going to grab the text. Some sites it'll also grab the audio, but since every site presents the audio slightly differently, it kind of has to be manually set to work with that site, or at least our developers have to change our extension to work with that, whatever site that is. So if you find a site which has both text and audio and the extension only grabs the text, please let us know. Say, hey, this is a great site. It's got all this good stuff, content. It'd be great if we could import the audio along with the text, and then we can look into it and try and get that to happen. But most sites, you have to use the extension to grab the text and then download the audio and upload the audio manually to the lesson. Am I Steve Kaufmann's son? Yes, I am. Please show how to import video or podcast. Okay, very quickly, if I go to YouTube, let's see. Let's find find a podcast in another language. Okay, let's see. Get past this ad here. So this first check that there are captions, and there are captions. I can check, so my subtitles are Italian, that's good. So as long as my subtitles are set to the language that I'm trying to import to, I can then click on the Lync extension, change my language to Italian. I can create a new course. If I want to call it, I might just call it, oops, or maybe I'll just stay with the default course. Or here, yeah, okay, new course. Import, it's going to whir for a bit here. And then I can open that lesson. And you'll see that the captions have been imported. The video shows up here in the sidebar. Even if I click on a word, to get back to the video, I can click on this button here and I can see the video again. The audio sometimes gets imported, and that's a bit of a, from YouTube only. YouTube/Google periodically blocks different things from happening, so that the audio is very often something that we can't grab, unfortunately. If you want the audio, you can find different tools on the web that'll rip the audio out of a YouTube video. So you can do that and then upload the audio to this lesson that you've created. But otherwise, you can certainly watch the video and click on words and look up and do your linking like you normally would. How can I change the language I want to learn? Changing the language is very simple. Click on this language switch, choose any of these languages. On mobile, it's maybe a little bit more difficult to find, but whoops, just get that. When you're looking at your mobile device, in the top right corner, there's this arrow, which then gives you a list of languages that you can choose from, existing languages, and then tapping this plus button shows you all the available languages. Hopefully that explains that. I have a problem remembering words in a conversation, however many times I repeat. Any ideas? You need more listening, more reading, and don't just stay with one conversation. It's very difficult to stay with the same conversation and read it over and over and listen over and over and try to learn the words over and over. The words that matter will appear in other conversations and other lessons, so you should move on. When you've done a lesson, you've listened 20 times or whatever, you've read it 2-3 times, you understand what 70-80%, good enough. Move on to the next lesson and keep moving along. You need to be encountering new content. You need to see the same words in new contexts. That's actually a faster way of learning than staying with one lesson and trying to drill it into your brain. Don't drill. Enjoy the language, keep moving on, and you'll find you actually learn vocabulary faster. Like it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It slowly starts small, starts slow, and pretty soon it just gets bigger and bigger, and it's rolling faster and faster. You'll find that just by moving on, creating links for every word, moving on to more difficult stuff. Don't wait too long. Don't stay with beginner stuff too long. Move on, push yourself, and you'll find that after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, all of a sudden, hey, I know a lot of these words that I'm seeing. I can just mark them as known and all of a sudden my pages are getting lighter and lighter, and I'm able to do more and more difficult stuff. And it's just a process. It just happens. If you do lots of listening, lots of reading, create lots of links, and just keep moving, you'll be amazed at the progress you can make. If I remove a lesson, do I lose the learned words or the links I have made? No, you don't. Removing a lesson just removes that lesson. Those words remain in your vocabulary list, as do all your statistics. Do I need to get the Lync extension on mobile or tablet? Yes, you do. If you, on your mobile, and we can import on mobile as well, so maybe we'll find, what a good, find a website. So here's an Italian news site. So here's an article. And this works the same on, this is, as I say, this is iOS, but it works the same on Android. You would tap the share menu, and you see my share options. One of them is Lync. If you don't see that option, you can go to more, and you can see all the different options that I have that I can add, and choose, oops, and choose that option. If once you if you install our mobile app, then Lync will be added as an option in your share menu. If it doesn't show, you have to go to more to find it. And Android, it'll be a similar process. When you tap the import extension, you again choose your language, choose your course. The source is saved. Good, everything looks good. It now imports that lesson from that new site. It's a bit of time. My computer's really working hard here trying to capture all this stuff. Huh, interesting. I don't know why, other than I'm but it's not working because we're doing a live stream. I don't know, maybe there's something broken there. It's strange that that wouldn't work. Something for me to look into. Oh no, there. And sometimes things happen, connection issues, different sites have different things that they do that change or whatever. It's very often, if it doesn't work the first time, try it again and it'll work just fine. And you'll see here, here's that article imported into the app. And of course, anything imported on the app is also available on the web and vice versa. So that shows you how to do that. Let's see, try to find a remove button on my mobile phone to leave us. Sometimes I find one, sometimes not. Funny, I guess this is a user, my problem. I can't think of why sometimes, you would have a remove button and sometimes not. Oh, in my lessons, this could be it. In my lessons, you're looking at all of your lessons so that you can remove any of these lessons because they've been added to your list of lessons. But if you're in the library and we go to whatever, the feed, you can't remove these because you haven't added them to my lessons yet. So you can save them to my lessons, add to your playlist, but you can't remove them because they're actually not in my lessons. So that's one thing to make sure of. Anything in my lessons, you can remove. Obviously, anything in the library, you can't remove because you actually haven't added it yet. Can I also use the language when importing? I don't know what that means. If I remove a lesson, do I lose it? Just use the share button. Yeah, let's see if there are other questions. Lifetime memberships, we don't offer very often, and there is no lifetime membership for all languages. I have a problem with remembering words. How can I? Yeah. I talked like Steve Kaufmann. That's funny. Can I study more than one language? Yes, you can study as many languages as you like all the time. How can I export my links into an Excel file? Okay. You can do that on the web in the vocabulary tab. If you select all or some terms and then go to the more actions drop down, you can do a variety of things, one of which is export. So you can export this page. You can actually export this page as a file that you can import into Anki, which is an SRS type system, review system. And then these are actually relatively new, but you can export all your links or export all your links as an Anki file. And if you choose these two options, you can export all your links, obviously, and they are actually emailed to you as a file. A CSV file is emailed, so you don't actually download those. These when you get all your links, those are emailed to you. Sort of. That takes a few minutes. Off topic, does anyone know if Lync offers a premium trial? You can get a trial through the mobile apps. There's a 7-day trial available. But keep in mind that Importing on or upgrading on the web is often actually cheaper than on mobile. So if you do go for that trial, you may want to, if you do want to continue, you may want to switch over to the web when you upgrade. Obviously, wherever you upgrade, you have access on both platforms. Guys asking about canceling. Bencion Castro, if you cancel, you have access till the end of the period that you paid for, so you can cancel anytime. Doesn't really matter. Someone's asking about Brazilian versus European Portuguese. I mean, in the end, you're going to choose a version that you like and that you want to imitate, but we always say don't worry about it too much. The language is essentially the same, at least in written form. You're going to want to understand both. So I think, yeah, you want to focus on one variety, but I do lessons in both. It's there's no downside to being able to understand both versions of Portuguese, just like there's no downside for Spanish, and maybe even in English, there's no real downside to doing lessons in all different accents. You end up encountering people from all different places, and it's the same language. So don't stress too much about the Brazilian versus European, other than when you're trying to obviously imitate one accent or the other, then you kind of have to pick one that you're going to try and imitate. Yeah, anything. Is there a way to you recommend maximizing the effectiveness of time spent on lessons? I think you kind of have to find your own way. You say, I saw you recommended listening to the whole text first, then doing the lesson. I actually don't do that myself. That is a way a lot of people do it, but I tend to read the lesson first, make my links, then I kind of go away and listen. And then it depends on the stage that I'm at in the lesson. If I'm at the beginner stage of a language, then very often I'll still probably read the lesson first, but then I will listen and read along. I find that very helpful. But I like to do that after I've created my links so that it goes more quickly, because then I just click on the yellow words as I'm listening if I can't remember what they mean. Or I use the keyboard to move from word to word. And that's something that I should stress here for those of you using Lync on the web. You definitely should take advantage of the keyboard shortcuts, and you'll find that if you click on this help icon, you see this help menu, you see these keyboard shortcuts here, and there are actually many more. It is a good idea to familiarize yourself with these. It just makes using the Lync on your computer much more efficient, and efficiency in language learning is key. And also it can be a lot of mousing and clicking if you're using your mouse all the time on Lync. So like for me, if I'm on the web, I'm using the arrow keys mostly. So here, if I use the right arrow key, gets me to the next word. I can move up and down these options using the up down keys, and then I can select either just by moving on, by hitting the right arrow key again. It's gonna save that selected or open the selected option, or I can hit enter to choose that option. I can make a word known, hit enter. So there are different things you can do with the keyboard, which you should definitely learn how to do. Even the hitting K makes a word known. X ignores a word. The number keys will actually change the status. So definitely familiarize yourself with those keyboard shortcuts. Is there, so yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I think it's up to you. I think it can be good for sure to listen and read the full text first and then read along. I don't tend to do that, but you kind of have to find what works for you. I tend to do most of my listening away from my computer, or at least when I'm out, when I'm in the car, when I'm out for a walk, whatever. I just use my playlist on my phone and listen. And like I said, only in the early stages, or especially in the early stages, I'm likely to listen and read along, but only after I've finished getting rid of my blue words. Someone asked, do I do word review? I have to say I hardly do any, but it depends what you like to do. Even if you like to do word review, don't do too much of it, because actually it'll slow you down. It's not the most efficient way to learn vocabulary. The most efficient way to learn vocabulary is actually by moving through the lesson. Every time I'm reading a lesson and I click on a word, that's a review. And it's just more efficient. Okay, and I'm reading, and what's this, and what's this? That is much faster and more efficient. And I'm going to see the words that matter will reappear in the next lesson or the lesson after that. And after a month or 2 months, for sure, the most common words, I'm going to know them. And I'm starting to learn less common words depending on the types of content, types of lessons I'm studying. The topics that I'm covering more often I'm going to learn sooner. But as I said with review, most of the time, I think you're using it to sort of focus on specific areas. So if there are verb tags that you want to focus on, review those. If you save phrases, and you should definitely save a lot of phrases. Phrases are great because they encompass the natural use of the language. They're components that you can learn together, that you can learn to use, and will make your language sound more natural and more fluent. So you should definitely save a lot of phrases. Like, for example, I can save this phrase. I can tag this phrase. I don't even need to, actually. I can filter by phrases in the vocabulary section, and then I can review those phrases. That's where I would use review. Or if you're kind of needing some variety, like sometimes you've been reading, you've been listening, and you're ready for something different, and you can do a review session just to kind of mix things up. And that's good too, because the brain kind of needs variety. But as far as how much review, I don't do much. Having said that, if you're just starting out and you're doing a language like, I don't know, Japanese or Russian, or a language that's quite different, uses a different script than you're used to, it may be a good idea, especially early, when you first start out, use the review to help your brain get used to the new language and the new script, and when you're kind of really focusing on a small number of words. But once you're kind of out of that initial stage, you need to learn so many words, you can't possibly learn them all using the review. Accidentally ignored words by auto-completing few lessons. It's hard to track them down and convert them into proper links. You didn't actually ignore those. When you move through lessons, you're making those words known. There's a distinction there. Ignore means don't include these in my stats. I don't want to learn them. When I click to go to the next page, those words are white. Those words are actually known. So those words are added to my known words here. So I now have 17 known words because I just added 7. But very easy. I just click on that word and choose a hint, and now I have 16 known words because it was deducted from my known words and is now a link. And I can just continue to do that. And it's in the end, if I read this lesson, I don't need the highlighting to tell me if I don't know the word or not. If I'm reading it and I don't know the word, I'm going to click on it. Whether it's known or ignored or whatever, click on it. Okay. Choose a translation, and it's now removed from my known words, and it's a link for me again. So it's really not a big deal. If you turn the page and make words blue words, known words, it's not a big deal. Just go back and click on any words you don't know. Okay. Let's see, any other questions here? Import series from Netflix. Let's see, yeah, I could do that. If we go to Netflix. Find something, and let's see. Okay, so here's a French show. Now I do need to find, let's pick a new episode to make sure that I haven't already imported this. So once you've got it playing, make sure that the subtitles are, yeah, they're set to French. So it's a French show with the French subtitles on. Then I go to the extension, Teach French. Let's see, choose the, add this course. Oops. Whoops. And then I can import. Interesting video of this show. Anyway, and then you'll see that the script has been imported, and you can see in full text here I've got the full captions from this episode imported here into Lync. So it looks like it's a fairly long episode. If it's longer than, I don't remember what the number of characters is, it will get split. In this case, this is fine. So it imports the title, season 1, episode 4. Yeah, hopefully that is all you need to do. Let's see. How do I make lessons shared? Can I share any lessons with audio and text? You can share any lessons with audio and text as long as you are allowed to share them. Don't share stuff that's copyright protected. And to share, you would basically click here to edit your lesson, assuming that you have audio. You have to have audio, you have to have text, you have to have an image, you have to add some tags. And then you have the ability to change the status from private to shared. You do have to save the lesson first before you can see this share drop down. Okay. I think that's probably long enough. We've been at this for a while now, so thank you very much for joining our webinar. Hopefully we have, I've shown you a few things today that will help you use Lync better. For sure, if you have questions after the webinar, if you're watching this after the fact, don't be afraid to post your questions on our forum or send emails to support. We're always happy to help you do any of these things. And if you find anything not working, like I said earlier in the video, please do email us and let us know so we can try and figure out, particularly with the sources of content, you know, sometimes things don't import properly, and if we can find those sources and figure out why not, we can usually fix the problem. So again, thanks very much. Hopefully we'll see you around Lync in the future. Bye-bye.